minus 10 minutes. Minus 9 minutes. Minus 8 minutes. Minus 7 minutes. Minus 6 minutes. minus 5 minutes. Minus for minutes. Minus 3 minutes. Minus 2 minutes. Minus 1 minute. Stand by.
How about that?
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the RP Show. We are live as far as you know. Welcome to a brand new month as far as our program goes. July the 2nd. Hope you had a great Canada Day. As we celebrate the great nation, we're airing on the Game Plus television network all across Canada and 32 U.S. states. That's a great country, too. I'm here at the Golden Ticket Sports Center. The Moose is in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. We're here for a good time, not a long time sports talk over the next 2 hours. And there he is. He is in Toronto, as you see. It's going to be a very Toronto-centered show. If you're ready, Moose, we're going to jump right into it. Other than to say, how was your Canada Day, Moose? How was your Canada Day celebration?
Canada Day was fantastic, man. It was an awesome Canada Day, full of free agency, big, long bike ride outside, gorgeous day, some baseball. It was a good Canada Day. Hope yours was good, too.
Oh, yeah. Sounds like some very Canadian things. Well, we're going to jump into it. As I say, we open every day here on Game Plus with the quick 6 show topics of importance, the top 6 stories of importance to me. And in this opening segment, the big story is not only the NHL free agency, which opens on Canada Day yearly, but also this Mitch Marner story. You're in Toronto. You are a Leafs fan. Mitch Marner is now a Vegas Golden Knight after the Toronto Maple Leafs signed him to an 8-year, $96 million extension and flipped him for center Nicholas Roy. They say Roy or Roy. Doesn't matter. The move came hours before free agency, allowing Marner to land an extra year on his deal. That among a flurry of moves on trade deadline day. That was reported coming out of the weekend. Blah, 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 blah. Listen, the reason I get to this with you, to open the show up with it, is this morning I opened my email. I go to Yahoo. First thing, Leafs fans unleash on Marner fleeing to Vegas. I'm like, come on. Now you get to hate on Marner? Did you see the videos of him and the photos smiling like it's a wedding day or a birth of a child? Everybody's all happy in Vegas. I'm not saying be happy for Mitch Marner, but he seems very happy, doesn't he, Darren? What's your take on the Marner thing? And you're in Toronto. What's the vibe? Was Yahoo blowing it up, or is it true if Leafs fans are like raging today at Mitch Marner?
Yeah, there's a lot of conversation about what the return's going to be like, and when he comes back, what the reception it will be like. And everybody is talking about how much he's going to get booed, and he's kind of getting tarred and feathered on the way out of town. And I see this stuff from Marner, in Vegas and stuff. It almost seems a little bit of like relief too. It is disappointing. This is you grew up in the market, childhood team, so many expectations, and to be honest, he delivered on a lot of the expectations in terms of like play, talent, points, et cetera, star power. We all know about the playoff disappointments, but yeah, what you see from Yahoo, Leaf fans are upset, and yeah, I don't know that he's their favorite right now.
Yeah, but you told me on the phone this morning that there were 2 perspectives. There's one that the Leafs fans are mad. What's the other one?
I am seeing the other side, and the other side is people posting their photos, their videos with sad songs, Sarah McLachlan and other ones like that, remembering the good times, and they are sad. And I am seeing a whole faction of hockey fans that are saying, we're going to regret this. I say Leafs fans, they're going to regret this, pushing him out of town. And you don't know what you had until it's gone. And it's not going to be easy to replace Mitch Marner.
Okay, well, that's, I think everybody could agree, the biggest story. I mean, again, you look at the photos of him in the Golden Knights facility there in, I think it's Summerlin, Texas, or Summerlin, Nevada. It's between downtown Vegas and Summerlin, whatever. They're all very happy. That's where the news conference was. I guess, we struggled a little bit today with the poll question. One poll question could have been this. Who wins the Stanley Cup first? Marner and the Vegas Golden Knights or the Toronto Maple Leafs? I feel silly even saying it out loud because I'll vote for Vegas and Marner, but how would you vote, you being the Leafs fan?
Yeah, I think we would all vote for Vegas. I think the organizational structure, what they've been able to do, they're a contender year after year, and they've already won. They've shown complete competence to the plan. And this was an interesting one that I saw, though, an interesting take. Not that, but perspective on Marner going to Vegas. They said, look, the fan pressure is different. Okay, you're out of that vacuum of Toronto. The fan pressure isn't going to be the same in Vegas. But they said, make no mistake, the organizational pressure will be much worse, because they said in Toronto, there really wasn't a lot of consequences for falling short in the playoffs. They didn't drop them. They didn't trade them. They didn't kick anybody out of town. In Vegas, if you don't perform and if you don't win, they get rid of you. Just ask Marc-Andre Fleury. They are quick to make changes unemotionally. So there's some organizational pressure there. They have a very high standard in Vegas.
This is so much fun. And here we are in July in Canada talking about the National Hockey League. I did see another headline. I didn't even click on the Leafs one, but I saw a headline. Marner attracted to family atmosphere with the Golden Knights. I'm like, what atmosphere is that? Let's talk to the Flower. Let's talk to Jonathan Marchessault. Let's talk to everybody who's had a can tied to them very quickly in Vegas. How much research did you do, Mitch? But he's still going to flourish there, and I'm sure he'll win a Stanley Cup in his time. But it's like, hey, to quote Chris Jones, don't get it twisted. I don't see much of a family atmosphere in Vegas, nor for that matter with many teams. Scott in Vancouver writes, and he says, Marner will be like Vince Carter. As the years pass, it will get better. Then if they win a cup, he will be welcomed back warmly. Bill from the YQR says, this Leaf fan hopes Mitch has a great time in Vegas. Well, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Unless it happens to me, that's what I always found. Then everybody knows. Bomber Boy writes in, he says, Leafs fans have never been excellent at coping, much like all Canadian fan bases. But here's the thing. Not all Canadian fan bases. Flames fans, Tim Hunter was on here a while back, and he said Flames fans are more sophisticated than anywhere else he's been. And Tim Hunter's coached in a lot of markets across the NHL, played in a lot of markets, and he's right. Like, you look at Sam Bennett and Matthew Tkachuk having success in Florida. When they left, the Flames never tarred and feathered those guys on their way out of town. But Leafs fans and a lot of other markets do tar and feather guys on their way out of town. But Calgary, they do not, because they knew that something was wrong in Calgary. But in Toronto, they have yet to figure out that something's wrong in Toronto. That's the sense I get from their fans. 30 seconds. Wow, thank you for that, Corey. I appreciate you. I feel like we're just scratching the surface. We're just talking about one guy largely here so far, Mitch Marner. We got a lot to get to. The Blue Jays have the chance to take over first place in the Eastern Division with a couple more wins over the Yankees at Rogers Center this week. And we got a big week in the CFL. Lots to get to. We'll be right back here on Game Plus Television and live streaming.
This is a test pattern. This is what happens when your video company screws up. You don't want your clients to see a screw-up. Hire a company that only does video, so it won't screw up. Then, people who give you money will see less of these and more of you. Skycron.com/live.
Hi, my name's Logan Stanko. And I'm Connor Bedard. We're both Hockey Gives Blood player ambassadors and proud to be blood donors.
There are thousands of patients each year in Canada that rely on a generous stranger to save their life.
Please book an appointment today to donate blood at blood.ca/HGB. Did you know that you can help save a life? And you can start right now.
Stem cells from male donors increase chances of positive outcomes for patients, yet they only make up 40% of our registry.
Today, there are hundreds of people in Canada searching for their life-saving match.
You can be a patient's best hope. Be a hero by registering with Canadian Blood Services Stem Cell Registry now.
I'm Bridget Lacquette. I'm a First Nation Olympic silver medalist, and I'm proud to represent Indigenous hockey players across Canada. Each year, hundreds of Canadians need a stem cell transplant from an unrelated donor to save their life. anyone can have a hard time finding a stem cell match. But for Indigenous peoples, it can be even more difficult, because just over 1% of prospective donors on Canada's stem cell registry are of Indigenous backgrounds. Be a hero. Join me in Hockey Gives Blood in helping to make a life-saving difference to those in need. Register today at blood.ca/beahero.
Shania Twain.
Let's go, girls.
Live in Moose Jaw. Shania Twain. One incredible show. Live at Temple Garden Center, July 7th. With special guest, Lindsay L. Get tickets Friday, March 21st at 10 a.m. at the Temple Garden Center's box office or sasktix.ca. For more, visit shaniatwain.com.
Famoso, Italian pizzeria and bar. Taste, savor, share. Famoso, the spirit of Italian. Come in, enjoy.
The RP Show continues live from Golden Ticket Sports Center. I should tell you that the Western Dodge text line is open, 902-518-3033. Proud partners of the Rod Peterson Show, Western Dodge and Moose Jaw. Big city selection with small town service. Before we jump to other topics, and the Moose is with us, we are in the middle of the Quick Six Show topics. We talked about Marner to Vegas, Leafs fans kicking him out of town, whatever. We're used to it. I'll say this before we move on, and I should tell you that Matthew Barnaby is today's special guest in hour two, 18th all-time at NHL penalty minutes. I can ask Barney this, but I'll ask you, Darren, I don't know how much time you've spent examining this. Who's the winner of NHL NHL free agency 24 hours into it?
I think it's easy. It's the Florida Panthers. And I know that's the pre-free agency period. I mean, we can change our answer based on July 1st onwards, but it's the Panthers. I think we looked at this task of trying to re-sign all three players, and we looked at it as a tall order, not an impossible one. But I think what Bill Zito did, state tax aside, I think was a phenomenal job. I think easily they're the winners of free agency.
Okay, well, I never even thought of the Panthers, and I should have. I'm doing our Panthers show later on today with the voice of the Panthers, Doug Plagans. But I'm going to say the Vancouver Canucks. They kept Brock Besser, they kept Connor Garland, and they've signed Thatcher Demko to a long deal if he stays healthy. I mean, the sense was that everybody wanted out of Vancouver, and clearly that's not the case. And we're not the biggest Canucks people here on this program, but I'd like to hear from their fans. I'm going to anoint Vancouver as the winners. So today, so far, today is day two. 8-time 20-goal scorer Nikolai Ehlers is the biggest target left on the board. The longtime Jets winger is reportedly drawing interest from Carolina, Tampa Bay, and Washington. Now, from the Western Dodge text line, Darcy in Grand Prairie, Alberta, writes in. He says, how about those Blue Jays? How about them? The Toronto Blue Jays can pull even with the Yankees atop the American League East with a win tonight at Rogers Center. Jose Barrios gets the start for Toronto, who have won 3 in a row. And the first 2 games of this 4-game set, Will Warren takes the mound for New York. Now, you're in Toronto. Every day you see people wearing Blue Jays gear around there, but there must be even more these days.
There is. And, the Canada Day Jays game had been a tradition that, Leanne and I had done for the last few years. We didn't go yesterday, but, man, we should have. I mean, when they, exploded there and ended up winning yesterday afternoon, it was awesome. There is a buzz in this city. first place is in sight. They're winning. They're selling out the ballpark, which in turn makes ticket prices kind of go up in demand. But that's what happens when you win and when you're good. This team is playing now into the summer, competitive, fun baseball, and the city's rallying behind it. This is typically kind of games with meaning that we don't see till later in the year, but we're seeing it at the beginning of July. Unexpected, but fun.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's really got me picking up and paying attention. I mentioned on Monday's program, you weren't with us, but I said I had them written off by mid-June. I think you said, correct me if I'm wrong, that they'd be out of it by mid-May. Here we are, first week of July, and they could be in first place. Here's how I'm paying attention to this. I was watching the game with Max Scherzer starting the other night. Guess that was Monday. And then the interviews with him after the game, and I was like, what happened to his eye? Immediately went to ChatGPT, and they said that he has the thing with his eyes. One eye's blue, one's brown. I didn't know that. I guess I just wasn't that big into Max Scherzer or Major League Baseball. But the guy can throw strikes. That's all I know. We're all paying attention. I thought he might have had only one eye. No, he's got two different colors. I had a dog like that, but we'll move on. Jake is watching in Calgary. He's a Canucks fan from the Hughes podcast. He said, the Hughes Sports Podcast, Jake Hughes says, as a Canucks fan, I don't know if they're the winners, but I was very happy with keeping Brock and the Demko extension. Chat about it live on the show tonight. Shameless plug for their show on this one. If it's not Vancouver, who would it be? Yeah, Florida. Florida would be, it's between Florida and Vancouver. Because who'd we say were the biggest free agents on the board? Mitch Marner, Brad Marchand, and Ehlers, or other.
Yeah.
And Marner was the runaway favorite. Vegas got him, so maybe Vegas is the winner. I don't know. Big Bob writes in from Quebec, and he says, go, Jays, go, Canada's team. Wayne in BC says, but the Canucks haven't went after any free agents yet. They need changes to improve, in my opinion. Maybe, but it's very, very, very important to retain your people, especially if you feel they are key people to what you want to do, right? It doesn't matter the sport, right? The Panthers didn't want to lose their key people. Look at all the guys that left, like Nate Schmidt signed in Utah, and he'll be great there. He was great for only 1 year in Florida, but he won a Stanley Cup. Vitek Vanacek. Signed, I don't know where. Like, it's a flurry of activity, right? But he's gone. He went. He was only with him. Nico Sturm signed in Minnesota. Won a Stanley Cup. Woohoo! Bye. Vladimir Tarasenko won a cup. Didn't have time to unpack his bags in Florida last year. Signed in Detroit this year. So they didn't care about keeping those guys. But they wanted to keep Sam Bennett, and they wanted to keep Marchand, and they wanted to keep Aaron Ekblad. And that's my point. The Canucks wanted to keep the guys that they wanted to keep. That's great news for Vancouver. And for that reason, I'll say they won it. Big Bob writes in. He says, this RP show is simply the best daytime sports show. He's a new viewer in Trois-Rivières, Quebec. Period. Honest talk and lively and active followers. Well, speaking of that, this is a great segue. This is really flowing well, Darren. It's weird. I said off the top of the show we were hemming and hawing on what the poll question would be. I don't want to say whose idea it was, but one of us suggested the poll question be, should the Edmonton Oilers sign Carter Hart? And I know that it's a very touchy subject because he's one of the 8, as is referred to in Canada and amongst hockey people. The verdict expected to come down sometime in July for the alleged sexual assault in London, Ontario, way back in 2018, right? So the judges decide. I know it's a touchy subject, but I've been around this my whole life, this culture, okay? So I said, hey, well, let's make it the poll question. Because I talked about it on my Panthers podcast, but trust me, down there, nobody knows or cares about this Carter Hart situation. And I saw Kevin Weeks from the NHL Network, former NHL goaltender, tweet about it the other day. He said the Oilers have interest in signing Carter Hart. And I'm like, well, if Kevin Weeks is going to say it, I guess we can. So we did briefly this morning post that question, should the Oilers sign Carter Hart? Just so you know, in the brief time it was posted, it got a lot of votes, and it was 56% yes, 44% said no. But you know what? Somebody in Atlantic Canada made us stink about it and said, this is a stupid question. How can you even ask this when the verdict hasn't come in yet? I get that too. I mean, I didn't feel bad about it, but how the hell are we supposed to act? We don't know. And this is judged by, it is verdict, trial by judge only, right? I did study law briefly, very briefly. And I'm not making light of this situation, but I'd like to think that our poll question would not affect the judge's verdict, for the love of God. I don't know what's taking so long. I know it's a very serious matter, but why do we all need to tiptoe around it? But because somebody got upset, we took it down and changed the poll question to Canada's game of the week. And incidentally, to wind this up, and I'm throwing this to you, Darren, Kevin Weeks deleted his tweet. I went and looked, so somebody got up. I know it's touchy, but don't come at us. Your thoughts?
Well, I know it is touchy, and I know if this is true, and if Kevin Weeks isn't going to put this out if there's not something with it, like some truth to it. So if the Oilers are interested, that's great. I understand there can be some negative, blowback by saying we're interested in Carter Hart, but that's because the other half of that, it shouldn't need to be said, but I guess it does. This question comes out obviously if Carter Hart is found not guilty and innocent of any wrongdoing here. And for the Oilers, if they're going to have interest, they're having interest in Carter Hart if he's proven innocent and not guilty. Obviously, if he's in the wrong here, the interest goes away. If he's in the wrong here, he's probably not going to be allowed back into the National Hockey League to play. So that should all go without saying, but it doesn't stop people from getting upset and saying, how do you want this guy on our team? It's like, let's just wait, let the process play out. It's going to take some time. But the reason we're talking about it is because it's July 2nd. The Oilers still haven't really addressed goaltending and maybe won't. And here's somebody who his development path, he's on the trajectory, Carter Hart was, to be one of Canada's top goaltenders, one of the top goaltenders in the National Hockey League. And so obviously when you're a Stanley Cup contender, the name would fit and it makes sense.
And by the way, I mean, I don't say this lightly at all. I don't know if the judge is a sports fan. And the reason I say that is, would the judge be affected by the fact that Carter Hart or the 7 other players might be planning their future depending on what the verdict is? Would it affect your decision if you knew that the Edmonton Oilers were considering signing this guy if you find him not guilty? I'd like to think not. That's how it works. It's business. It's sports business, which is another thing. I did see some Leafs fans and some Leafs media, that line's become very blurred, upset about tampering and, how could Vegas talk to Marner ahead of the deadline? And if you actually think that tampering doesn't go on in every league, then you're a complete buffoon. And I don't think this judge is a buffoon, so I don't think the judge will allow us talking about it to affect the verdict, is what I'm saying. But what we settled on was Canada's game of the week, and it's not even a race. Here's in the Canadian Football League, it's week 5, and these are your games. And I'm a little jealous of our Calgary friends, to be honest. Thursday, it's Winnipeg at Calgary, and no more votes, folks. They've won. The Stampede Bowl is the runaway winner for the game of the week. Winnipeg Blue Bombers at the Calgary Stampeders. Brett Michaels of Poison rocking the crowd at McMahon Stadium. That's what's got me very jealous. I like Brett Michaels. Friday, Hamilton at Toronto. BC at Montreal Saturday. Sunday, Ottawa at Edmonton. And Moose, you're just a little grasshopper. I know this, but listening to Brett Michaels' Poison, nothing but a good time. Brought back flashbacks of Electric Avenue and Curly's in college in the 90s for me. Like literal flashbacks. So you got the games there. Saskatchewan has the bye. Are you going along with Winnipeg, Calgary, or you do have a Battle of Ontario in your backyard?
Yeah, and the Argo is coming off a win. That's exciting. So is Hamilton. That's a really meaningful game. I like that. There's a lot of sizzle, I think, this week in the Canadian Football League. Do we know where Nathan Rourke is at coming into this week? Do we know? because again, if he plays, it changes a lot of, the hype around the game. And if he's playing, if it's Rourke versus Montreal, sign me up for that. Like, sign me up for that as the game of the week. But just tells you there's a lot of great matchups this week.
Yes. Well, I didn't have the benefit of your presence on Monday. You were unavailable to wrap week 4. Did you have any thoughts on the football games? None of them. They were okay. They weren't tremendous games. Every single one was a double 1 minute. Okay. Every one was a double-digit point spread margin.
Yeah, but still exciting and still fun football. And as we start to figure out, again, we're in this first third of the season, and I think what we do in the first third is we kind of try and figure out who these teams are, who everybody is. And, we're still in that part of the season, trying to figure out who we are. And Riders have the bye week this week, so we won't see them. They're off to a great start. But last week was still really exciting, especially the 2 defensive touchdowns. In the Argos game, that was great. They needed a win, so setting up a big week 5.
We'll get to the comments. We got some gooders coming in. Jeff, the Stamps fan, says, was Curly's on Electric Avenue? No, it was on McLeod Trail South, just south of Glenmore. But everything else was on Electric Avenue. We'll be right back after this.
Famoso, Italian pizzeria and bar. Taste, savor, share. Famoso, the spirit of Italian. Come in, enjoy.
Shania Twain.
Let's go, girls.
Live in Moose Jaw. Shania Twain. One incredible show. Live at Temple Garden Center July 7th. With special guest Lindsay L. Get tickets Friday, March 21st at 10 a.m. at the Temple Garden Center's box office or sasktix.ca. For more, visit shaniatwain.com.
Did you know that you can help save a life? And you can start right now.
Stem cells from male donors increase chances of positive outcomes for patients, yet they only make up 40% of our registry.
Today, there are hundreds of people in Canada searching for their life-saving match.
You can be a patient's best hope. Be a hero by registering with Canadian Blood Services Stem Cell Registry now.
I'm Bridget Lacquette. I'm a First Nation Olympic silver medalist, and I'm proud to represent Indigenous hockey players across Canada. Each year, hundreds of Canadians need a stem cell transplant from an unrelated donor to save their life. Anyone can have a hard time finding a stem cell match, but for Indigenous peoples, it can be even more difficult because just over 1% of prospective donors on Canada's stem cell registry are of Indigenous backgrounds. Be a hero. Join me in Hockey Gives Blood in helping to make a life-saving difference to those in need. Register today at blood.ca/beahero.
Hi, my name's Logan Stanko.
And I'm Connor Bedard.
We're both Hockey Gives Blood player ambassadors and proud to be blood donors.
There are thousands of patients each year in Canada that rely on a generous stranger to save their life.
Please book an appointment today to donate blood at blood.ca/HGB.
Hiring a video company shouldn't be complicated. Click, pay, done. Skycron.com/Regina.
Okay, the RP Show continues on this Wednesday, July 2nd. Thanks for joining us. Episode number 1526 of Canada's favorite daytime sports talk show. The Moose is with us in Toronto for just one more segment. Western Dodge text lines open 902-518-3033. Drive with confidence. Shop Western Dodge and Moose Jaw. Financing, selection, and service you can count on. If you just joined us, of the quick six show topics, we've got through three. The big story, NHL free agency and Mitch Marner to Vegas and Leafs fans crying. Point two, the Blue Jays, with two more wins over the Yankees this week, could take over first in the American League East. No, I can't believe it. Point three is Canada's game of the week in the Canadian Football League. We covered that. A lot more NHL talk coming up next hour with Matthew Barnaby. Point four is Wimbledon. Point five is CONCACAF. And point six is randoms. Hang on, Darren. I know your heart just skipped when I brought up Wimbledon. But of the fun stuff to talk about, your buddy Chris from Heidelberg, Ontario, has written in and says, for the love of Ace Bailey, Leaf fans, Marner made a decision on what he thought was best for him and his family. That's his right as a free agent. The Leafs fans have me defending an ex-London Knight. LOL. Signed Chris from Heidelberg. I know he's your buddy. He's your OHL buddy, Darren. But, this Marner thing is not going to die anytime soon, if ever, I don't think.
No, it's not. And, it's a little different than John Tavares. Like we talked about, John Tavares going from the Islanders to the Leafs, and there was the photos of John in the Leafs pajamas, and he's going to his childhood team and, all of that. And Islanders fans just lit him on fire on the way out of town. And every time he came back to play a game on Long Island, right, it was the same thing. And I think this feels kind of similar to that in terms of the way that the Leafs fan base is kind of treating Mitch Marner the same way the Islanders did to Tavares. And it's different, though. Marner's not going to his childhood team or a team he grew up loving or anything like that, but he's just doing what he thinks is best. I mean, what was it, 9 years, I think, with the Maple Leafs? He's in the top 5 all-time scoring for the franchise and all the rest. So he's done a lot for the team, and now he's got to, he's earned the right to do what he wants to do. That's sports. And, we might like it. We might not like it. We might, think he's abandoning you in the middle of, this window to try and maybe get over the hump and win. But that's his right. He can do what he wants to do.
Wow.
So, yeah, I'm not that upset.
All I'm saying is put yourself in the skates of Mitch Marner. Y'all hated him when he was there, so he leaves. Now y'all hate him when he's gone? He literally can't win. And here's the thing about Toronto sports. It's kind of weird and it's cool. Like, again, you and I talked about it this morning. The GTA is its own thing. I know Cardinal Ryan in upstate New York watches this show because he enjoys the Canadian landscape talk. I'm not a Leaf fan, never have been, but I'm a Blue Jays fan and I'm a Raptors fan. Those are my teams in the MLB and NBA. And you had brought up this morning about Vince Carter. There are people comparing Mitch Marner to Vince Carter. And I don't know how this is a whole lot different than that situation in that I remember Vince Carter. You said you don't remember it as well, but he left because he didn't think he was ever going to win there. Mitch Marner might have left for that reason. I think he was just tired of the crap and not being able to move in that town, his hometown. And do you think it's comfortable for him? I'm going to bring up, in Regina, but it's difficult when you have a sloppy, messy ending with your hometown team and you have to leave. Trust me, I've been there. It's not fun. I guess that's why I'm not getting defensive for Mitch Marner. I'm happy for Mitch Marner. But you've heard the Vince Carter comparison over the past couple of days out there.
Oh, yeah. And it is. And they're talking about the, reception Mitch Marner is going to get when he comes back. And they say it's going to be worse. He's the biggest public enemy in sports in this market since Vince Carter. And yeah, I get it. But I think what you just said, and write it down for the meme on social media, Mitch Marner was hated when he was here. He's hated when he leaves. Like, he literally cannot win. And that's a tough spot to be. He was facing a lot of the negative press and publicity. And we saw the press conferences, the interviews. And what do you do when you're in that situation? Everybody's negative. Where are the goals? How come you're not doing this? What's going on? You're the reason we're losing. And it's like, yeah, I want to win. Of course he wants to win. But it's not working. So, okay, I'm going to leave. Now you're abandoning us. Like, what do you want? What do you want from me?
Did that just dawn on you when I said that? Like, I feel sorry for the kid. Did you realize that before I said it?
I mean, I knew I thought the negative stuff too. And it's just, but you're right. Like, I mean, I guess I'd thought about it, but it's something that needs to be put into the light. It's like he was in a no-win situation here. So he's going to do what's best for him.
Well, to take it one step further, he's like, I'm tired of getting kicked around. I'm not going to be your bitch anymore. Goodbye. And now they're all mad at that. Like, it's funny in a way. Troy in Toronto writes in, but listen, it's just me, but Vegas, Toronto as a city, I don't think the players look at it that way, because why would you leave South Florida for Salt Lake City? Although the more I hear about Salt Lake City, I hear that it's amazing. I don't think they pick the environs, but if I had a choice of living between Vegas or Toronto, I would pick Vegas, not to mention the money thrown at them. They've already won a Stanley Cup, blah, 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 blah. Troy in Toronto says some media and some fans abandoned Mitch and now crap on him. It's weird. People harassing him at his own home, throwing garbage on his front lawn. Who knows what else his family went through, right? And that's the difference between the Canadian markets and the U.S. markets. Serena and I talk about it all the time. Sam Reinhart, when he scored 4 goals in the Stanley Cup clinching game this year, all his neighbors threw hats on his lawn in South Florida, in Fort Lauderdale. They all know where you live, but it's that vibe of Florida where Darren's been there to visit us. It's just fun. Everybody's happy. Toronto, I don't think you say that. Okay, while you're here, Moose, I have it written down. Point 4, Wimbledon. Over to you.
Yeah, Wimbledon has been off to a great start. It's been a good chunk of the day yesterday watching, which has been awesome because it's on over here really early in the morning. And for you, even earlier in the morning, out west. But Canadians doing good. An 18-year-old female, Victoria Mboko, she had a really impressive win yesterday on Canada Day. Watched that from start to finish. She's moving on. And today, multiple Canadians on the court as we're into round 2, of the championships. Felix Auger-Aliassime should be on the court soon this afternoon. And the young Canadian, Gabe Diallo, he'll be on the court later on today. So 2 Canadian on the men's side that are going to be in action today. But so many top seeds are out. It's like a record for seeded players that were out in the first round, left and right, upsets galore. It's been really fun that way. So it's kind of wide open. I love it.
There you go. I lobbed it up for Darren. Clearly, I'm not into tennis. He is, however, so I thought I would let him mention that. Kirk in Toronto writes in and he says, hey, Rod, what, you're not an Argos fan? When I said I'm a Raptors and a Blue Jays fan. You only watch every day, Kirk. You know I'm a CFL fan, a fan of every team, and it's made it real easy for me to pick winners, report on the league, because I don't care who wins on a game-by-game basis. And, Darren, I don't think you're any different than that, even though you are from Sask. You still a Rider fan, or are you like me, just a fan of the whole league?
I'm a fan of the whole league, but I'm still a Rider fan. When I want them to win. I do when I watch the games. I have a feeling, and I think I'll always have a little bit of the Riders in me for sure. But I am a fan of the whole league more than I've ever been.
BW, watching from North Dakota, writes in. He says there are people that still blame Vince Carter's mom for leaving Toronto. Well, that is the one thing that I hope the people get into therapy, because God knows I've spent thousands of dollars on it, and it helps you get over these things when you say they're never going to get over it, so you just got to move on. Shake hands and say bye-bye, which is similar to me in Rider fandom. When I watch them, I don't feel anything. Not hate, not love. I just watch the games. That's all. And it's made it very easy to pick the winners and cover the league. Okay, Moose, look, you didn't go get some more sun or what? Looks like you got some sun on Canada Day.
Yeah, I got some sun. You can see it's a gorgeous day today. So, yeah, I'll be heading outside having some sun today. You have a great day, too.
Ryan in upstate New York says, I'm here for the NHL and CFL talk, the best of both worlds. Scott in Vancouver says, Harold Ballard ruined the Leaf franchise for a quarter century. Marner is also a similar figure to Dave Keon in some ways. We'll be back with a sports update and viewer takeover the rest of the way. We're live on Game Plus, television and streaming live.
Hi, my name's Logan Stanko. And I'm Connor Bedard. We're both Hockey Gives Blood player ambassadors and proud to be blood donors.
There are thousands of patients each year in Canada that rely on a generous stranger to save their life.
Please book an appointment today to donate blood at blood.ca/HGB. Did you know that you can help save a life? And you can start right now.
Stem cells from male donors increase chances of positive outcomes for patients, yet they only make up 40% of our registry.
Today, there are hundreds of people in Canada searching for their life-saving match.
You can be a patient's best hope. Be a hero by registering with Canadian Blood Services Stem Cell Registry now.
I'm Bridget Lacquette. I'm a First Nation Olympic silver medalist, and I'm proud to represent Indigenous hockey players across Canada. Each year, hundreds of Canadians need a stem cell transplant from an unrelated donor to save their life. Anyone can have a hard time finding a stem cell match, but for Indigenous peoples, it can be even more difficult because just over 1% of prospective donors on Canada's stem cell registry are of Indigenous backgrounds. Be a hero. Join me in Hockey Gives Blood in helping to make a life-saving difference to those in need. Register today at blood.ca/beahero.
Shania Twain.
Let's go, girls.
Live in Moose Jaw. Shania Twain. One incredible show. Live at Temple Garden Center, July 7th. With special guest, Lindsay L. Get tickets Friday, March 21st at 10 a.m. at the Temple Garden Center's box office or sasktix.ca. For more, visit shaniatwain.com.
Honky Tonk legend Mark Chestnut. Celebrating 35 years of music. Joined by special guest Aaron Goodvin. June 28th at Temple Garden Center. Tickets on sale now at Temple Garden Center box office or online at sasktix.ca.
Well, hi there. Welcome back to the RP Show, everybody. It's just you and me to the top of the hour, and we've got a sports update coming up. Just want to read the comments from the viewers because now it's just you and me time. And Matthew Barnaby coming up in hour two, 18th all-time in NHL penalty minutes. And I will tell you something, that's one of the things I used to say all the time, that my most favorite thing in this business was calling games, and it was for a real long time. Then I still call baseball games now. But the second best thing was doing those sports dinners, right? We did them forever. COVID pretty much kicked the crap out of that. But what was nice about that was getting to know the sports figures that would come in and speak at these sports dinners that I always was the MC for. And that's where I got to know Matthew Barnaby at a dinner down in Arcola. Maybe we'll bring that up when he joins us next segment. That was one wild night. Whew. Sober guy here. Wasn't me. Arcola, man. They know how to rock and roll down there. And I was such a big fan of Matthew Barnaby as a player, 18th all-time in penalty minutes, as we said. It's just a thrill for me to be able to DM him and say, Barney, can you come on the show and talk NHL free agency? He's like, I'm in. And he also watches the show every day up there in Ottawa here on Game Plus Television. So I'm just saying, it's a thrill to be able to speak to my sports heroes every day. Can you believe they pay us for this? Nathan writes in and says, hey, Rod, it was good to meet you at Starbucks. Me and my wife enjoyed our time in Regina. This thing can only be credited to God. I would say a God shot. Do you remember last week, a gentleman wrote into the show and said, Rod, I'm watching the show on a flight into Regina right now, coming to watch the Rider game, and it doesn't look like I'm going to get to watch Trevor Harris live. I really want to see him play live. Looks like he's not going to play. I want to say that was Thursday. Later that day, I'm having coffee with Al Dumba at Starbucks from the famous hockey-playing Dumba family. This guy is looking at me in the Starbucks with his wife. And he looked a lot like Connor McDavid. A lot like Connor McDavid. Nathan, would you agree? Do you ever get confused for Connor McDavid? And he's like, Rod, I was the guy that wrote you on the plane. I can't believe you're here. Nathan, how else do you explain that? I mean, it's not a big town, but it's not a really small town either. So I'm glad you enjoyed it. We had great weather on the weekend. The game was great. The Riders won, 37-18, and Jed's a millionaire. Thank you, Nathan, for watching as well. Rough Riders on a bye this week. I'm sorry, I got to go back here. A lot of people have great comments on NHL free agency. Rob in Las Vegas watching says Mitch Marner and his family can live relatively anonymously here in Vegas compared to the glaring spotlight in Toronto. Don't for one second think that that's not very attractive to anybody. I can't imagine anybody that would like that. There are people that do like that, being recognized everywhere you go. I know I don't. Another from Kirk in Toronto. Hey, Rod, Mitch Marner had his SUV stolen from a Mimico movie theater. I know. Wasn't he in it? Did they not come up and rob him at gunpoint? And it's not like that doesn't happen in Vegas either. They have their own problems. I'm pretty sure those guys that were stealing his SUV at gunpoint weren't even aware that it was Mitch Marner. But still. On free agency, Tony from Cochrane, Alberta, writes in, he says, the Flames let Dan Vladar get away and don't have a replacement. Will we start the season with Wolf, the sophomore, and another rookie? There really isn't an attractive free agent out there to replace him. Well, here's what I think on that. I follow the Flames very closely, and the head coach, Ryan Huska, is a good longtime friend of mine. They have now made their decision that Dustin Wolf is their guy. He's been in the organization long enough through the Wranglers and now the big team. They know how much of a workload he can handle. So whoever they bring in as the backup, he's not going to be the guy. I mean, it's really cool to follow how things have changed and morphed. And there's a football adage to this too, but hockey specifically, you have your key guys and then there's everybody else. For instance, in Florida, the Panthers fans were all worried they were going to lose Vitek Vanacek, the backup goalie, which incidentally they did to, was it Utah? It doesn't matter. He's not going to play there either. Like, he's a backup. Dan Vladar was never going to be the starter in Calgary, not after Dustin Wolf proved that he's the man. They didn't know for sure what they were going to get out of Dustin Wolf, but now they're believers, so they can find their own Vitek Vanacek. Anthony Stolarz, I'm sorry to say, Leafs fans, he's one of those guys. I don't think he's a number one guy. I think Wall is. But you got your top tiers, the Bobrovskys, and then you have your backups. And it's always kind of been that way. But my point is, you keep your number ones, and you don't worry about the backups because you can always find one. That's what I think. BW says, I think Calgary will go after Jake Allen. I believe I just read this morning that he is signed with New Jersey. Did he not? You can go look it up. He re-signed with New Jersey, I thought. It's been pretty wild. There was a comment from our Navy friend, Don from Ottawa, who brought up the one-year contracts and the player circulation. It's a good. I said how this would relate to football. Look at the Canadian Football League, where you have your what you'd like to think are your stud quarterbacks. The Vernon Adams. Well, they don't have a veteran backup in Calgary, but in BC, Jeremiah Masoli's a backup. Cody Fajardo's a backup in Edmonton. Jake Mayer here in Saskatchewan. That's changed. McLeod Bethel-Thompson in Montreal. It's not a developmental job anymore. It used to be. Matthew Dubuck, watching in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, writes, and he says, hey, Rod, can we get you in a Quebec Nordique or a Montreal Expos tee for a show? Yeah, if I had one. I had an Expos hat, and I don't know what I did with it. I bought it on Rue St. Catharines, Matt. And I don't know, I think I might have purged it when I was purging everything. I don't know if that's a genetic thing or something I learned from my mom, but if it wasn't nailed down, gone. Worked for her, works for me. Sports update here. The Toronto Blue Jays will be aiming. By the way, the Expos and Nordiques are both dead, Matt. Get with the program. The Toronto Blue Jays will be aiming to move into a first-place tie with New York when they host the Yankees tonight at Rogers Center. Righty Jose Barrios will be on the mound for the Jays, who have won 3 in a row. Righty Will Warren will pitch for the Yankees, who have lost the first 2 of this 4-game series with the Blue Jays. We'll probably be watching this one tonight. There's a gang coming into the friendly city here, the Greek Mafia. You might have heard of them, and we're going for supper. And I know for a fact where we're going, they'll have the Blue Jays game on. Left-hander Clayton Kershaw is on the brink of a major milestone, needing just 3 strikeouts to reach 3,000 for his career. The 37-year-old Los Angeles Dodgers pitcher is expected to achieve this feat tonight at Dodger Stadium against the Chicago White Sox. A 3-time Cy Young winner, Kershaw would become only the 20th pitcher in MLB history to hit that mark. The Nikolai Ehlers watch is on. The Winnipeg Jets star forward is taking his time before determining his playing future. The prized free agent was not signed nor traded during yesterday's opening of NHL free agency. According to several reports, Ehlers is considering a move to either the Capitals or Hurricanes. The Lightning have expressed interest too. This one really got me thinking. This is a lifestyle story here, as far as I'm concerned. Indiana Fever guard Sophie Cunningham has raised concerns about the WNBA's choice of markets for its latest 3 expansion teams. Cunningham said yesterday the league should listen to players about where they want to play. She questioned how excited people would be about going to Detroit or Cleveland. Ew. The league plans to add franchises in Cleveland in 2028, Detroit in 2029, and Philadelphia in 2030. Okay. I raised 3 daughters. I'm not sexist. You all know that, or chauvinistic. When I say this, it was said about LeBron. I forgot the girl's name already. Sophie Cunningham. In a basketball term, I'll say it as politely as I can. And I'm not saying it, but there will be people that will say, be quiet and dribble and leave the business to the owners. I'm not saying it's right. I'd love to hear what you think about this. Sophie Cunningham of the Indiana Fever says, can you ask the players where they think the expansion team... I can't even say it with a straight face. That's where we are now in society, folks. You kind of have an idea of how things went on in her home growing up, right? What do you want for supper? I'll make it for you. My house. This is what you're eating. Be thankful. I am. Navy Don writes that he says, an Expos hat, you wouldn't believe how many thumbs up. And that's a great hat from people across Canada. The franchise may be dead, but the spirit of the Expos and Nordique live on. No, I get that. I'm just saying the Blue Jays are still playing. And I don't wear hats very often, although I will be later on today when I host the Panthers podcast. You might want to check in on that one, Coach. Doug Plagans, the voice of the Florida Panthers, will be with me. Okay, we're going to carry these comments over to next hour. Scott in Vancouver says, I had a Nordiques hat at one time. Wish I still had it. Jeff the Stamps fan says, but they live within our hearts, Rod. No, they live within mine too. But the point is, don't be upset that I'm wearing Toronto gear when their teams haven't folded or moved. That's all that I'm saying. Matthew Barnaby next hour. Get your questions in for him. We'll be right back here on Game Plus TV and streaming.
Hiring a video company shouldn't be complicated. Click, pay, done. Skycron.com/Regina.
Famoso, Italian pizzeria and bar. Taste, savor, share. Famoso, the spirit of Italian. Come in, enjoy.
Shania Twain.
Let's go, girls.
Live in Moose Jaw. Shania Twain. One incredible show. Live at Temple Garden Center July 7th. With special guest Lindsay L. Get tickets Friday, March 21st at 10 a.m. at the Temple Garden Center's box office or sasktix.ca. For more, visit ShaniaTwain.com.
I'm Bridget Lacquette. I'm a First Nation Olympic silver medalist, and I'm proud to represent Indigenous hockey players across Canada. Each year, hundreds of Canadians need a stem cell transplant from an unrelated donor to save their life. Anyone can have a hard time finding a stem cell match, but for Indigenous peoples, it can be even more difficult because just over 1% of prospective donors on Canada's stem cell registry are of Indigenous backgrounds. Be a hero. Join me in Hockey Gives Blood in helping to make a life-saving difference to those in need. Register today at blood.ca/beahero.
Did you know that you can help save a life? And you can start right now.
Stem cells from male donors increase chances of positive outcomes for patients, yet they only make up 40% of our registry.
Today, there are hundreds of people in Canada searching for their life-saving match.
You can be a patient's best hope. Be a hero by registering with Canadian Blood Services Stem Cell Registry now.
Hi, my name's Logan Stanko. And I'm Connor Bedard. We're both Hockey Gives Blood player ambassadors and proud to be blood donors.
There are thousands of patients each year in Canada that rely on a generous stranger to save their life.
Please book an appointment today to donate blood at blood.ca/HGB.
Welcome back, everybody. Hour 2 of the RP Show. One guy that I've noticed isn't here today. John Ohm. Don't know where he is in Winnipeg. I guess he's on the Nikolai Ehlers watch. He's the biggest name still left on the board in NHL free agency. Coming up, Matthew Barnaby. I'll try to remember your questions. I asked you for them, and people have written in that are watching on streaming in the chat and also on the Western Dodge text line 902-518-3033. He's great to me. Matthew Barnaby, NHL great, coming up in the next segment. The quick 6 show topics are these. The big story, NHL free agency and Mitch Marner. I didn't think much of it when it came out of my mouth last hour, but Darren Dupont, our co-host an hour ago, said it makes a great meme. Imagine being Mitch Marner, hated as a Leaf in Toronto, now hated for leaving. What do you want me to do? Bye. I don't know if the fans are ever going to get their head around this, I'm only going to do what's best for me. And by the way, what's wrong with that? That's not selfish. What was Mitch Marner supposed to do? Sign long-term in Toronto and be crapped on by the Leafs fans for the rest of his career? Or go to Vegas? Pretty easy decision to me. By the way, is there a winner in free agency so far through one day, or as Darren aptly pointed out, the days leading up to free agency? He says it's the Florida Panthers. And I'll say save for Florida, which they probably are the winners. I said the Vancouver Canucks, but even Canucks fans wrote in and said, not sure that we are, but we're happy. When you keep your key guys, I think that's a win. Point two was the Toronto Blue Jays. I just can't believe what they're doing. They've won the opening two games of this 4-game set against the Yankees at Rogers Center. Game 3 tonight. Jose Berrios on the bump for the Blue Jays. And if they win the next two, they're going to take over first place in the American League East. Forget about tying the Yankees tonight with a win. I didn't see that coming. Way to go. I'm not always right. I think a lot of us were raised the same way, Producer Corey, and I'm getting to that. See, it's not just about the sports. Canada's Game of the Week is the poll question. We do it every Wednesday. Here are your games in the Canadian Football League this week. Thursday, it's the Stampede Bowl, first ever. Kicking off the Calgary Stampede, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers at the Calgary Stampeders with a concert from Bret Michaels of Poison. Not going to lie, wish I was there. Great West Division collision, too. And it's running away with the voters, number one. Friday, Hamilton at Toronto. Saturday, BC at Montreal. Sunday, Ottawa at Edmonton. And as a matter of fact, if you want to know the actual vote of it, it's 53% Stampede Bowl, 24% Ticats Argos, 12% Ottawa Edmonton, a rematch of the 2015 Grey Cup, and 11% voting for BC Montreal, a rematch of the 2006 Grey Cup. So not a lot of interest in those games. And then I was reading this story of Wimbledon. I mean, I won't watch 2 seconds of it. That's my fourth point. But Moose gets all horny about it, so I thought I would let him. Same with point 5, CONCACAF. Just not my thing. You didn't tune in here to see me talk about tennis or soccer. And point 6 is the always popular randoms. What could be more random than those things? Sophia Cunningham of the Indiana Fever of the WNBA saying, the hockey boys here just waving goodbye to them. Shooting clinic going on over here. You might have heard them at the Golden Ticket Sports Center. Sophia Cunningham of the WNBA saying, why didn't they ask the players where to expand to in the WNBA? Detroit and Cleveland? Nobody wants to go there. Why wouldn't they ask us? Did nobody challenge her in the news conference and say, what are you talking about? But who do you blame? The parents? Glenn in Medicine Hat writes in. He says, I love the what do you want for supper reference. I said at the end of last hour, for those that didn't have the benefit of watching, there was the way I was raised, eat what is cooked for you, to what it is now. What do you want for supper? I'll make it for you. And I said, I've raised 3 daughters. The middle one, Kaylee, I'll never forget, made her craft dinner when she was a teenager. She goes, I don't eat craft dinner. I said, then I guess you're not eating. Yeah. Producer Corey writes in and says, I was basically served what I was served when I was a kid. Same as Rod's mom. We all turned out okay, didn't we? How do you blame Sophia Cunningham? She's just used to getting whatever she wants. Tony from Cochrane, Alberta writes in and says, so, Rod, we're one injury away from no goalie? I'm very concerned. Well, at some point, number one, the Flames will have a plan. So, Tony, don't be concerned. I'm pretty sure they're not concerned. Again, this was a conversation from last hour. And I love this back and forth with the viewers, and Matthew Barnaby's coming in next to answer your questions, too. It's one of the few questions I feel even comfortable answering is anything to do with goaltenders. When people said John Gibson was the only quality goalie available in free agency and he ended up being moved to Detroit, right? He was like the 10th player on the top 10 list at TSN. John Gibson, which he's a good goalie, but he didn't have any Stanley Cups on his mantle. I see big save Dave Riddick signing with the Islanders. He was with the Flames at one time. Now, I saw with my own eyes Dan Vladar almost single-handedly beat the Florida Panthers in their barn back in March. Oh, my God. Were you guys watching that game? It was a Saturday afternoon. I think he put up around 50 saves, and the Flames still lost. Yeah, he's that guy. He's that good. But I think at that time, the Flames weren't even sure if Wolf was going to be the guy moving forward. They probably were because it was March. But they've now made that clear decision. They'll find somebody. Trust me, there's a lot of backup caliber goalies out there. I'd have to look at the stat for how many starts Dustin Wolf had. But my guess is he'll be 55 this year. Tell me if I'm wrong, Flames fans. You can find somebody else to start the other. My math is bad, but around 30. I do have the Flames making the playoffs this year, though. This is not something they can casually deal with, but they won't, because that's not how this Flames regime does things. Jeff the Stamps fan says it very well regarding Sophia Cunningham. The players won't be writing the checks. Ta-da! Tell him what he's won, Bob. Rob in Vegas. This is what's for dinner. Right? As I said to them, 5 billion kids in China not even eating today. Eat the craft dinner. Usually that's all that it takes. Then you get it's okay. Yeah, 3:35 p.m. Eastern. I'm just going to remind anybody that cares. We'll be doing our live Cats and Bolts podcast. I want to say it'll be the season finale, but I said that 2 weeks ago. We keep doing them because the Panthers fans keep wanting the show. And this week, we've got the Florida Panthers radio voice, Doug Plagans, coming in live on our Panthers podcast, just like this, live streaming on YouTube at 3:35 p.m. Search the channel Cats and Bolts, all one word, Cats, N, the letter, Bolts, all one word, on YouTube. They think they don't like hockey in Florida. Right. And the Panthers treat us like we're ESPN. Not joking. That's another thing. You want to know why some teams always win and some teams always lose. I was talking to my 12-step sponsor, Bob, yesterday as I was walking through Waccamaw Valley. People think it's just lucky that the Panthers keep winning Stanley Cups, or that the Argos keep winning Grey Cups, or that the Winnipeg Blue Bombers are always in the Grey Cup. Then there's other teams that haven't been in it in years. Oh, they're just lucky. No, it's the way you treat people. It's the way you handle your business. It's the way you treat your own people. I don't know what it's going to take for people to figure that out. Oh, John Ohm, did he show up? He did. What do you got to say for yourself, John Ohm? I forgot to tell you, the sports update is brought to you by Heavy Gym. The grind never stops at Heavy Gym. Whether you're starting out or going for gold, we're here to help you reach your peak. It's not like any other gym. It's a cut above. Are you ready to get started? Head over to heavygym.ca and unleash your power. Oh, my God. Okay, story time. Glenn Erickson writes in from Medicine Hat and says, Bobby Bonilla picked up a cool $1.2 million yesterday from the New York Mets. Only 10 more payments to go. Just speaking of New York baseball, I work in this Western Canadian Baseball League, broadcasting the games for the Moose Jaw Millers on a channel called Flow College Baseball. And there's the coach of the Regina Red Sox, Rye Pathakos, played in the league in the 90s. And he played with a guy by the name of Daryl Boston. You longtime baseball fans will remember Debo from the Yankees. I think he played for both the Yankees and the Mets. But anyways, there was a legendary story from back in the 90s that Debo was drinking vodka in his Gatorade bottle in the dugout. So I asked Rye just last week when we played if that was a true story. He goes, not only was it a true story, he goes, I was his teammate, Daryl Boston, Debo. And I said, you can't be drinking vodka in the dugout during games. And the guy says, Debo says, I did it in New York at Yankee Stadium. I'm going to do it in Regina. Debo. Jeff, the Stamps fan, says it shows how narcissistic these WNBA players are. That's a whole culture that I'm just watching from the other side of the fence. It gets so much coverage, particularly in America and a little bit in Canada. I don't really understand it. It's an entertaining thing, but the toxicity within the league is unbelievable. There's a column in the USA Today about the jealousy of Caitlin Clark, of the other players of her, and that it's not a thing. Oh, I'm pretty sure it is. I've seen the highlights of the games. It's disgusting the way she gets treated. It's also 11:11 Mountain and 1:11 Eastern for those that are into that sort of thing, which reminds me, where is Carlos from Indianapolis? He's like the first to remind us of 11:11. 902-518-3033. Sports Talk coming your way here on the Game Plus Television Network. Mark in Burlington, Ontario writes in. He says, right on, Rod. Being one of 6 siblings, when my mom said, dinner's ready, we ran to the table and gobbled everything down, and we're thankful. That's the way that we were raised, and that's the flippity flop. These kids that weren't raised that way, how do you blame them? They don't know any different. I always got that. But Rod, we can't do it the way that our parents did it. Why not? Because I'll guarantee you there are some parents that are. And there's nothing wrong with that. Darren writes in from Melford on the Western Dodge text line, 902-518-3033. Says, talking about Mitch Marner getting ragged on. I remember Paul McCallum getting run out of Regina for missing that short field goal. He went on to have a Hall of Fame career. Maybe Marner will too. Well, that came up, by the way, on the weekend. Not only did he get run out of town, manure was thrown on his lawn. In South Florida, they throw hats on Sam Reinhart's lawn, his neighbors, after he scores 4 in the clinching game of the Stanley Cup. Here, they throw horse crap on your lawn if you don't 2 minutes. If you don't kick a field goal, which, by the way, would have tied the game, right? Not won the game. It was the 2004 West Final. Will be the title of my next book. I was there. Tony from Cochrane, Alberta writes in. He says, Dustin Wolf ain't playing 84 games. Even Bobrovsky only played 54. It's funny you say that, but I don't think you meant this, but I never said Dustin Wolf would play 84 games. What did I say? He'd probably play 55. So you can find some schlub to play the other 30. That's what I'm saying. It's Dustin Wolf's team now. We're all okay with that. I don't know who that's going to be, and I understand your concern, but I don't think the Flames are concerned. If they were concerned, they'd have tried a little harder to sign somebody in free agency. Maybe they are got somebody coming up in their system. I'm not sure. Let's be happy with the fact from a Flames fan perspective that they have their goalie of the future, because God knows it's been a struggle since Kiprasov left. They thought it was going to be Jacob Markstrom, which, by the way, he seems to be doing okay in New Jersey. Everything's different in Flames land now. Just celebrate that and try not to worry. Western Dodge and Moose Jaw is the proud partner of the RP show. Big city selection with small town service, and we'll have some live shows coming up there. Now in the month of July, very much looking forward to that. The number to reach us here is 902-518-3033. Matthew Barnaby joins us next. Get your NHL questions in for Barney. We'll be right back on Game Plus Television and live streaming.
Hiring a video company shouldn't be complicated. Click, pay, done. Skycron.com/Regina.
Hi, my name's Logan Stankoven. And I'm Connor Bedard. We're both Hockey Gives Blood player ambassadors and proud to be blood donors.
There are thousands of patients each year in Canada that rely on a generous stranger to save their life.
Please book an appointment today to donate blood at blood.ca/HGB. Did you know that you can help save a life? And you can start right now.
Stem cells from male donors increase chances of positive outcomes for patients, yet they only make up 40% of our registry.
Today, there are hundreds of people in Canada searching for their life-saving match.
You can be a patient's best hope. Be a hero by registering with Canadian Blood Services Stem Cell Registry now.
I'm Bridget Laquette. I'm a First Nation Olympic silver medalist, and I'm proud to represent Indigenous hockey players across Canada. Each year, hundreds of Canadians need a stem cell transplant from an unrelated donor to save their life. Anyone can have a hard time finding a stem cell match, but for Indigenous peoples, it can be even more difficult because just over 1% of prospective donors on Canada's stem cell registry are of Indigenous backgrounds. Be a hero. Join me in Hockey Gives Blood in helping to make a life-saving difference to those in need. Register today at blood.ca/beahero.
Shania Twain.
Let's go, girls.
Live in Moose Jaw. Shania Twain. One incredible show. Live at Temple Garden Center July 7th. With special guest Lindsay L. Get tickets Friday, March 21st at 10 a.m. at the Temple Garden Center's box office or sasktix.ca. For more, visit shaniatwain.com.
Famoso, Italian pizzeria and bar. Taste, savor, share. Famoso, the spirit of Italian. Come in, enjoy.
This is a test pattern. This is what happens when your video company screws up. You don't want your clients to see a screw-up. Hire a company that only does video, so it won't screw up. Then, people who give you money will see less of these and more of you. Skycron.com/live.
Welcome back to the RP Show, everybody. Live across Canada on the Game Plus television network and airing in 32 U.S. states. Many of those have NHL markets, and they love our hockey coverage. And who better would you get than Matthew Barnaby, 18th all-time in penalty minutes. Hey, Barney, looks like you're in the exact same spot as where you took that photo with the balaclava yesterday on Brock Besser. Can you tell the folks about that?
Yeah, I was going to put it on today, but it was a little hot under there when I was under it. So, listen, we used to always call it Time to Rob the GM Day or Happy National Villy Leno, Bobby Holik, Christian Ehrhoff Day, where you really get to hold them hostage. So, yeah, the balaclava was in full effect yesterday. Not as many robberies as I thought, but there certainly were a few along the way.
So for those that don't know, just to back it up, you're saying Brock Besser robbed the Vancouver Canucks? Like, the Canucks fans were all very excited. They were messaging me, and I'm like, maybe he couldn't get a better offer anywhere else. How did you feel about that?
No, not Besser. Besser's a guy I think that they actually got some kind of value. You're not losing him. I think if you look at robberies along the way, you got to look at Provorov, 8 years at 8.5 million. Listen, Provorov's a good player. I just think it's a lot of money to spend on a guy that, isn't the best defensively. You just get enamored with his skating. Boston, Jeannot, 5 years, 17 million. He had one good year in the NHL. He scored 20 goals in his last 4 years and has not been healthy. So I just don't get up locking a guy. Listen, he brings physical prowess to your lineup. He's a big guy. He's tough. 17 million is a stretch for me. Geeky with Boston. Scores 11 goals in his last 14 games. Listen, right time, and I'm never going to begrudge any player that gets the money. Get it while you can. But those are just contracts that are reaches for me. So Besser's were signing there, and I had that written down as we were coming on because a lot of Canadian teams didn't do as well as we might have thought. I think Montreal was a good team, but Vancouver locking up Besser long term, not losing a guy like that they're going to need next year, and obviously locking up Thatcher Demko at 8.5 million for 3 years. You solidify your goaltending.
Please back me up on this. I don't know if you were watching last hour, but when we brought up winners or losers of free agency, I said Vancouver, and we had a Canucks fan say, but we didn't sign anybody. We didn't go and get it. You kept your key guys. Now, Florida's probably the winner. Let's be honest. But for Vancouver's got to be happy with what they did.
Yeah, sometimes, listen, when you get into the trade market, sometimes the best trade is the trade that you don't make. And when you're able to keep your own guys and they don't leave in free agency for another team, you're better because of it. Listen, Vancouver, might not have been able to lock up Thatcher Demko. And that would have been a problem. Listen, 8.5 million right now, probably a little bit of a stretch. But when he's healthy, he's a top 5, 6, 7 goaltender in the National Hockey League. And Brock Besser's another one. Where are you going to go pluck a 30, 35 goal scorer and put him into your lineup for the next 7 years? It just doesn't happen unless you overpay. So yeah, Vancouver did well. Look at Edmonton. Now they signed Mangiapane today, but they signed Evan Bouchard, 4 years, 10.5. Great defenseman offensively. But now your top 4 guys are making a lot of money. 14 million's kicking in for Draisaitl. McDavid's probably going to go to at least 16 million. You got Bouchard there. That's a lot of money being spread out. And you see what happens. A guy like Corey Perry, now he goes who was fantastic last year, fantastic in the playoffs, moves on to a rival in LA. So you have Edmonton that everyone's sitting there. What are they going to do in net? They did nothing. They didn't get better. They got worse, whereas Vancouver didn't get worse.
I got so much to talk to you about. Mike Wynn is watching from Ice Time Sports in Winnipeg. He owns his sporting goods store there. He has this on his television every day. He goes, Barnaby is a beauty. Oh, is he ever? And I said last hour, I just get a thrill talking to my sports heroes every day on this show. And Barney, you're one. You really are. But do you think the fans will ever understand that it's a business? Like, Ducks fans are personally offended that Corey Perry would sign in LA. They're like, how could he? It's business. You do the same thing. Right?
Of course. Listen, when you have to admire when a guy like John Tavares, signs for 4.5 when he probably could have got 6.5, 7 on the open market. Because listen, he's made $100 million, but never begrudge a guy that's going to get more money somewhere else. And don't say, "Oh, where's the loyalty? Where's the loyalty?" No, there's a lot of things that come into play. Who gives you the best chance to win a Stanley Cup? Who's going to pay you the most? State taxes. I don't care what anyone says. It's not the end all be all to signing, but if you can make 10 million in Toronto, or you can get 8 million in Florida, you have as good a chance, if not more. They're back-to-back champs, but even take Tampa or Vegas along the way. Way of living. Listen, where do you live?
Florida.
You live in Florida. How nice is it waking up to that sun every day? Nice.
I've been nowhere else better.
Listen, it just puts you in a great mood. So there's so many things that go along with it, but long-winded answer to your question, there's so much that goes into it, and guys should go anywhere that they want that pays them and gives them a chance, and it's their lives. It's their lives. So going to LA was 25 seconds away. Essentially, if Quentin Byfield doesn't get the puck out of the zone in that game 4 in Edmonton, to beating the Edmonton Oilers and moving on. They aren't far away from contending from a Stanley Cup, and they gave him $4 million. Edmonton probably could afford 1.5.
Big Bob is watching in Trois-Rivières, Quebec, and he says, no, the fans will never understand, unfortunately. Great stuff and great analysis, Barney. Sure, he's as good an analyst as there is. And Barney, somebody asked your thoughts on the Sabres moves. They've made a few. What are your thoughts?
En premier, I love Trois-Rivières. Great place to play my junior games against. Very passionate fans. I actually think they won the East Coast Hockey League championship this year. So congratulations to them. It's a great hockey market. As for the Buffalo Sabres, listen, the NHL, it's a very tough place when you're in not a desirable place to play. And I love Buffalo. You would love Buffalo. Anyone that's played in Buffalo that spent a lot of time there and had success, the fans are phenomenal. It's not the best city in the world. It's gray a lot of the time. And when you're stuck at the bottom and you haven't had success and made the playoffs in 14 years, you have a lot of guys with no trade clauses. Buffalo is on, I guarantee, 99.9% of those lists. So trying to trade for a big-time player is very hard. Look at Bowen Byram. I'm guaranteeing there's a lot of trades out there, but they're for futures. They don't want futures right now. But equal players don't want to go to Buffalo. Second of all, if you're in free agency, we just talked about it. How does Buffalo get better through free agency? No one wants to sign in Buffalo unless you're paying them $2-3 million more with more term. So you're giving out bad contracts. That's just the reality of the Buffalo Sabres right now. That's a tough thing to be, is at the bottom. And I guarantee if Winnipeg wasn't a good team, they would go through the same types of things. It would be like playing in Hartford back in the day. You have to overpay. So it's really tough in the NHL right now if you're a bottom feeder and not in a great popular market to live.
We got a guy, Kirk, wants to talk about the Red Wings, and we will in a second, but we got to get to the Marner thing. And I said, I feel terrible for the kid. They hated him when he was with the Leafs, and now they hate him for leaving. What the hell? I'm just happy that he's so happy in Vegas.
Yeah, again, he's going to Las Vegas. No state tax. A team that is in the conversation at the start of every year to be a Stanley Cup champion. Beautiful city, beautiful area to raise a family on the outside. They aren't in downtown Las Vegas. They're in Henderson, Nevada, in multi-million-dollar homes with the sun every single day. So he's getting out of the pressure cooker per se in Toronto, but he's going to a place that still there's internal pressure to win. This team expects to win every single year that they've been in the league, and they've been very fortunate with some of the moves that they've made and been able to accrue some amazing players and just had tremendous success. So listen, he could have got 14 and a half on the open market on a 7-year deal, and everyone says, why are you helping him get an extra year? Toronto Maple Leafs don't care about Mitch Marner now. He's gone. They got Nicholas Roy, who can fill in and be a very good third line center, a big guy for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And Mitch Marner is going to be super happy. He's going to get 100 points playing with Jack Eichel and make this team. The worst thing that could happen for Toronto, though, is if Vegas wins a Stanley Cup. We'll never, ever, ever hear the end of it. But good for Mitch Marner going there. He got a great deal, $96 million. He's not gonna worry for a long time.
Well, it's a facetious poll question where I was going to say today. I laugh. I can barely say it with a straight face. Who wins the Stanley Cup first, Marner and the Golden Knights or the Leafs? Come on. It's going to happen. Who didn't see this coming, that he was going to leave? Like, I'm watching the analysts like you do. Sportsnet and TSN, they seem shocked and hurt that he would leave. I'm like, you guys have ran him out of town. Yeah.
You say how soft he is in the playoffs and no character and only a regular season player, and you wonder why he signs in another market. Come on. Now, the Maple Leafs knew he was gone. They knew at the trade deadline he was gone when they couldn't even further negotiations, and that's why they were trying to figure out a deal on going to Carolina or moving him in a three-way deal to Las Vegas. They knew it was coming. Mitch Marner said, I'm going to give it one more kick at the can, and then I'm gone. And, hey, he got the extra year on his deal. Great for Toronto. They got a player at least in return that's a good player. You could have lost him for free. So thank Mitch Marner for accepting the trade to go to Las Vegas and working out that deal.
I'm wondering what you're hearing out of Florida, and you spent a lot of time there, about the Panthers, how they went from the have-not to the have. I can tell you what I think because I've seen it with my own eyes. Bill Zito and Paul Maurice tell the players exactly where they stand. This is what we're going to do with you. You fit in, sign you to a long-term deal. They don't leave guys in the dark. They don't dick you around, and they treat people well. What a shock, Barney, and that's why they're going to be good for a long time. You wouldn't think that would be so hard to figure out how to run a team.
Yeah, and I've known Billy Zito since I've been 20 years old. My first roommate, Doug McDonald, who went to the University of Wisconsin, was Bill Zito's first client as an agent. So the epitome of class, and like you said, it goes a long way when you treat people with respect. And that's not just hockey. That's in general. Whatever business we are in, you get treated with respect. You feel a sense of loyalty. Is Florida the ultimate right now? Yes. Again, beautiful place to live. Weather is beautiful. Team is great. No state taxes. A sense of camaraderie between the organization and the players. So all of those things, 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 equals 5. It's a simple fit. Guys are willing to take a little bit less. They're not willing to take $4 million less. They're all getting paid, and we can get to the Brad Marchand contract. Does he probably play 6 years of it? No. The number works out for him. Sam Bennett, could he have made $9.5 million on the open market? Probably. $10 million. Would that have been overpay for a guy that scores 50 points in the regular season? Probably. But all of these, Ekblad, they took a little less money, a little bit more term, and they'll figure out all that down the road. But it goes exactly to what you said, RP. It's a great place, and they treat you with respect.
Well, it was a great place. It was a beautiful place when they were crappy for years. My wife said, you should write a book on the history of Florida Panthers, the franchise. I'm like, oh, I will, but that's going to take a while because you talk to Mike Keenan, you talk to guys that had deals with owners that they went back on, and their payroll was like this back in the day. They wouldn't spend on players. So it was a beautiful place, but when the team was crappy, now they have everything. It's the perfect storm. The gentleman wrote in about Detroit. Kirk says, hey, Rod, Alex Delvecchio, dead at 93. Hall of Famer and former line mate of Gordie Howe, played on the production line with Howe and Lindsay. You're seeing the heat on Stevie Y, I assume, in Detroit. It's hard to believe they would ever light him on fire in that town, but they're striking the matches.
Yeah, you talk about talking to your idols. I grew up in Ottawa. Stevie's from Ottawa. We had the same agent, Larry Kelly. I used to pretend to call Larry Kelly and pretend I was Steve Yzerman just to make sure I'd get him on the phone. Steve Yzerman is the epitome of class. You never thought a legend like that would be under this kind of fire. But he is. That's the reality of transitioning and leading a team. That's what you know when you get into this business and you start getting into management. He made a great deal yesterday. A great deal getting John Gibson, the best goalie on the open market. He re-signs Patty Kane for limited money. They need to make the playoffs or our good friend Stevie Yzerman will be gone. But step in the right direction in getting John Gibson. You know, Edmonton had to be saying, man, I wish I would have given up those 2 first-round picks at the deadline last year to get John Gibson, but they held strong, and we saw how that ended.
Hey, Rob in Las Vegas writes in, I love this. He goes, Matthew. Who calls you that besides your mom, Barney? When's the last time you were called Matthew, other than the doctor's office?
Yeah, I'll call myself Matthew because I'm not going to speak to myself in third person and call myself Barney or Bam Bam or whatever it is. But yeah, really, my mom is the only one.
So I figured. Matthew, does the signing of Marner make Vegas an early Stanley Cup favorite?
I'd put them in the top 3 only because Florida has to be at the top. They re-sign all their guys. The cap's going up. And it's just a lot easier to get to the Eastern Conference Finals. You know, really, I think their only competition right now probably is the Carolina Hurricanes. That's the only team that I think can really even give them some kind of fight. And we saw how that ended last year. Like, that's just right now. Some things can change throughout here. We don't know where Ehlers is going to sign, whatever. To get to the Western Conference Finals, Vegas, listen, they're up there. But you still got Colorado. You still got Dallas. You know, you have a lot of teams. Winnipeg at plus 2,200 is a great bet, but you got to slay like 3 dragons in a row to get to that Western Conference Final. But Vegas is up there. They're the top 3 in the Western, probably top 4 in the NHL.
I'd have them in the top Stanley Cup favorite before they got Marner.
Yeah.
Big Bob, by the way.
Pietrangelo is a big one to lose. You know, he's a big one to lose, but there's some cap money that's going to be spent somewhere else because they spend to the cap.
That's a lot of money available for somebody else. Big Bob in Trois-Rivières says, by the way, Matthew, I remember when you played for the Tigre in Victoriaville. I'm from there. Whoa. Weren't you just a Quebec Rempart, or were you moved?
No, my last year, I played my first 2 years and a bit in Beauport, which is a suburb of Quebec Ramparts. It's literally 5 minutes away. Got traded when I came back from Buffalo's camp because I went into the GM's office and we were supposed to be top team in Canada. And I said, this is bullshit. We're like 0-8-1. We need to make a move. He traded me for the second top scorer in the league to Verdun. And then I was traded. The team came and asked if I wanted to be reunited with my coach that I was with in Beauport with Victoriaville, Alexandre Daigle, Claude Savoie. So I went there and thought we had a great chance at winning a Memorial Cup. We lost in the first round. Alexandre Daigle took a 5-minute measure, and we were knocked out, and I got called up to the Buffalo Sabres. But I love the Quebec League. Absolutely love the Quebec League. Love
me
the passion.
too. The Beauport, Harfang. Oh, by the way, you're going to have to go over here right away. Just nod or shake your head. You coming to Sask this summer, Barney? Yes? No? Oh, yeah. Okay, well, you got my number. Thank you, Barney. Matthew Barnaby. God, I love that guy. We'll be back with Viewer Takeover and Sports Update coming up right after this here on Game Plus Television and streaming live.
Famoso, Italian pizzeria and bar. Taste, savor, share. Famoso, the spirit of Italian. Come in, enjoy.
Shania Twain.
Let's go, girls.
Live in Moose Jaw. Shania Twain. One incredible show. Live at Temple Garden Center July 7th with special guest Lindsay L. Get tickets Friday, March 21st at 10 a.m. at the Temple Garden Center's box office or sasktix.ca. For more, visit shaniatwain.com.
I'm Bridget Lacquette. I'm a First Nation Olympic silver medalist, and I'm proud to represent Indigenous hockey players across Canada. Each year, hundreds of Canadians need a stem cell transplant from an unrelated donor to save their life. Anyone can have a hard time finding a stem cell match, but for Indigenous peoples, it can be even more difficult because just over 1% of prospective donors on Canada's stem cell registry are of Indigenous backgrounds. Be a hero. Join me in Hockey Gives Blood in helping to make a life-saving difference to those in need. Register today at blood.ca/beahero.
Did you know that you can help save a life? And you can start right now.
Stem cells from male donors increase chances of positive outcomes for patients, yet they only make up 40% of our registry.
Today, there are hundreds of people in Canada searching for their life-saving match.
You can be a patient's best hope. Be a hero by registering with Canadian Blood Services Stem Cell Registry now.
Hi, my name's Logan Stanko.
And I'm Connor Bedard.
We're both Hockey Gives Blood player ambassadors and proud to be blood donors.
There are thousands of patients each year in Canada that rely on a generous stranger to save their life.
Please book an appointment today to donate blood at blood.ca/HGB.
Hiring a video company shouldn't be complicated. Click, pay, done. Skycron.com/Regina.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Where were we? It's just you and me, as producer Corey likes to say, two shorties, two short segments, and then we're out of here. And I'll tee this up this afternoon, 3:35 p.m. Eastern, because so many of our viewers are on that Eastern time zone. We will be broadcasting the season finale of the Cats and Bolts podcast, and the voice of the Florida Panthers, Doug Plagans, will be joining us to talk about the Cats' second consecutive Stanley Cup final, winning free agency. I can say to Dougie that you've been anointed winners of free agency. That probably won't be news to him, but join us live on YouTube and go to my Twitter. Would be the best place to go, at Rod Peterson. I'll put a link on there, and you can watch us live. It's going to be big fun. Here is your sports update for Heavy Gym. Day 2 of NHL free agency is underway with several notable names still unsigned. 8-time 20-goal man Nikolai Ehlers is the biggest target left on the board after sitting out day 1 of signing, reportedly drawing interest from Carolina, Tampa Bay, and Washington. The Edmonton Oilers made a late free agent move, signing forward Andrew Mangiapane to a 2-year deal. The Toronto product had 14 goals, 14 helpers, and 81 games last season with Washington. Canada's women's soccer team faces the top-ranked United States tonight in an international friendly in Washington, D.C. The Canadians haven't won on U.S. soil since 2000. All time, let me add this up. 53-9 is 62, plus 4 is 66. They've met 66 times. 66 times they've met. Canada and the U.S. Canada's won 4 times. You want to bet who wins tonight, producer Corey? Probably the USA. Canada opened the current international window with a 4-1 win over Costa Rica on Friday in Tirana. By the way, I got nothing against soccer. I just don't have time for it. That's all. I have nothing against it, but I'm not going to sit down and watch a soccer game. I've got my hands full clearly with what I'm doing. Hockey, baseball, and football. And that reminds me, last hour's sports update for Heavy Jim. Bill in Newfoundland writes in, when I said Sophia Cunningham, who plays for the Indiana Fever, she thinks the players should have a say in where the expansion teams go. Bill in Newfoundland writes in and says, for what it's worth, Sophie has 2.17 million social media followers. And so what? She's how many? 2.17 million. That's probably 2.17 million more than the owners of the teams combined, the guys and gals that actually make the decisions. Don't get it twisted. The players can't make these decisions. The inmates can't run the asylum. The Toronto Blue Jays can pull even with the New York Yankees atop the American League East with a win tonight at Rogers Center. Jose Barrios gets the start for Toronto, who have won 3 in a row. Can't wait to watch this one. We got a night to watch baseball on television. The boys are coming into town, the Greek Mafia, and we're going to be getting pizza again. I'm having it like every day, and I'm happy about that. We'll be watching the Blue Jays on the tube. My Millers are on the road, visiting the Saskatoon Berries. Los Angeles Dodgers lefty Clayton Kershaw is 3 strikeouts away from 3,000 for his career. The 37-year-old is set to start tonight against the Chicago White Sox at Dodger Stadium. He'd become just the 20th pitcher in MLB history to reach the milestone. The sports update is for Heavy Jim. Your best self is just a challenge away. Push your limits, conquer your goals, and become the strongest version of you. Visit us at heavygym.ca, where transformation happens. There's nothing else like it on the air, the RP show there. I'm pretty confident in that. PJ is watching in Alberta, and he says this is an elite show. He liked the story of Darryl Boston, the former New York Yankee that was drinking vodka in his water bottle, his Gatorade bottle in the dugout for the Regina Cyclones, and his teammate Ry Pathako saying, you shouldn't be drinking vodka in the dugout. He said, I did it with the Yankees. I'll do it here. So good. 902-518-3033 for Western Dodge. We'll be coming back with overtime and get to the best stories right after this brief pause here on the Game Plus Television Network, streaming live and, of course, found on all major podcast platforms.
Hi, my name's Logan Stanko.
And I'm Connor Bedard.
We're both Hockey Gives Blood player ambassadors and proud to be blood donors.
There are thousands of patients each year in Canada that rely on a generous stranger to save their life.
Please book an appointment today to donate blood at blood.ca/HGB.
This is a test pattern. This is what happens when your video company screws up. You don't want your clients to see a screw-up. Hire a company that only does video, so it won't screw up. Then, people who give you money will see less of these and more of you. Skycron.com/live.
Did you know that you can help save a life? And you can start right now.
Stem cells from male donors increase chances of positive outcomes for patients, yet they only make up 40% of our registry.
Today, there are hundreds of people in Canada searching for their life-saving match.
You can be a patient's best hope. Be a hero by registering with Canadian Blood Services Stem Cell Registry now.
I'm Bridget Lacquette. I'm a First Nation Olympic silver medalist, and I'm proud to represent Indigenous hockey players across Canada. Each year, hundreds of Canadians need a stem cell transplant from an unrelated donor to save their life. Anyone can have a hard time finding a stem cell match, but for Indigenous peoples, it can be even more difficult because just over 1% of prospective donors on Canada's stem cell registry are of Indigenous backgrounds. Be a hero. Join me in Hockey Gives Blood in helping to make a life-saving difference to those in need. Register today at blood.ca/beahero.
Shania Twain.
Let's go, girls.
Live in Moose Jaw. Shania Twain. One incredible show. Live at Temple Garden Center, July 7th. With special guest, Lindsay L. Get tickets Friday, March 21st at 10 a.m. at the Temple Garden Center's box office or sasktix.ca. For more, visit shaniatwain.com.
Famoso, Italian pizzeria and bar. Taste, savor, share. Famoso, the spirit of Italian. Come in, enjoy.
Hiring a video company shouldn't be complicated. Click, pay, done. Skycron.com/Regina.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. Don't mind me. I'm just updating rodpeterson.com. Have you checked that out lately? Or at all, for that matter. Two-time winner of Canada's Sports Blog of the Year award. And by the way, Overtime is brought to you by our friends at Overtime Hockey Lanes in Calgary. We're just weeks away from heading out to Overtime Hockey Lanes in Calgary, part of our stint out there for the Western Canadian Scouting Foundation Hall of Fame induction, where we'll be broadcasting live and then popping in on Overtime Hockey Lanes as well. You should pop in there if you haven't yet. 28th Street, Northeast Calgary, where skill and fun collide. Or as I like to call it, an amusement park for hockey players. So the sports update here, or whatever the heck, the news that you can use, the Saskatchewan Rush of the National Lacrosse League have signed Derek Keenan to a 2-year contract extension, the second year being an option for the 2026-27 season. Keenan will be returning for his 16th season with the Rush, continuing his roles as general manager and co-head coach. With the team's success last season making it to the NLL Finals, Keenan's goal remains the same. And there's a quote here that's going up at rodpeterson.com in moments, as soon as we get off the air. But it's funny because they won 3 championships under prior ownership, the Urban family. Close friends of mine, and by the way, congratulations, Brandon Urban, on your nuptials. Getting married. And his father's Bruce, his mom's Cindy, and they told me about how they ran a team. It's quite an interesting story, actually, when they owned the Saskatchewan Rush, formerly the Edmonton Rush. They came down to Regina for a Rough Riders game, and they asked me to go out for breakfast with them. We went to Perkins, and I think we were there about an hour. We were there an hour. After the first hour, I called my wife, and I said, yeah, I'm going to be don't wait. I'm going to be here a while. I think it was a 3.5-hour breakfast we had at Perkins that day on Victoria Avenue. We just clicked. And I said, what was the secret to your success, Bruce, with this team? And he said, telling Derek Keenan, go do what you need to do, and I'll give you all the resources you need to win. And then getting the hell out of the way. And it clearly worked. Now, they don't own the team anymore. They sold them to whatever they're calling it. Let me say Saskatoon Sports and Entertainment Group. I'm not sure what it is, but they own the Blades and the Berries and the Rush. And Derek Keenan tried to step away. That's Mike Keenan's cousin, by the way. I think they're first cousins. What a thrill to have been able to interview them both. But he tried to step away. Derek's been through a lot in his life personally, none of which he caused. He's taken some knocks. I think he was ready to retire. I think he's already in the Lacrosse Hall of Fame. He stepped away from the team for a while. They very quickly brought him back. And they're up in the league final this year, losing out to the Buffalo Bandits, but nobody would have beaten them. And now he signs a contract extension. They just can't live without him, is kind of what the moral of the story is. I think he's great. Summer sports are very interesting and a lot of fun, right? The poll question today, we'll spend a lot more time on the games tomorrow. But the poll question is for Canada's Game of the Week, brought to you by EMJ Marketing. I'll save you the time. Winnipeg Calgary is winning the Stampede Bowl. That's another story. Winnipeg Blue Bombers at the Calgary Stampeders Thursday night to kick off Week 5 in the CFL. It's a fantastic matchup as it is, let alone what's going to be going on there with Brett Michaels of Poison rocking it out of McMahon Stadium. Our viewers say that's the game of the week, and I agree. Friday, Hamilton at Toronto. We do have all those viewers down there in Southern Ontario, but I think we have more viewers out here in the West. Saturday, BC at Montreal, and Sunday, Ottawa at Edmonton. But you want to talk about a page out of the Never Say Never book? Of course, we own the demographic across Canada in this time slot of 55 plus. I'm not there yet, but I'm getting there. But my point is, to the people that have a little wisdom, a little gray hair, if you wait long enough, you'll see everything come around. You'll see things turn. You'll see certainly things evolve. And my good friend George Cortez, longtime offensive coordinator of the Calgary Stampeders, he's won 5 Grey Cups. I think we're all with Calgary, maybe 4, and 1 with us in Sask. George retired now in Houston, Texas, but he said to me once, as have a lot of people from Calgary, when George was with the Stampeders, he said, well, you know, Rod, we're just not going to play at home during the Stampede. How could we play at home during the Stampede? You know, Stampede just takes over Calgary. And then all of a sudden, it's the Stampede Bowl Thursday night, and Friday morning, Shania Twain is leading the parade. I thought you couldn't play at home during the Stampede. No, I love George, obviously, but everybody said, well, the Stampeders just go on the road for 2 weeks during the Calgary Stampede. They don't want to get lost. Why are they doing it now? Tomorrow, Jersey Jim Behringer is going to be with us, and I won't be asking him why the Calgary Stampeders never play at home during the Calgary Stampede. Just so you know, Jersey Jim Behringer will be with us to talk about NHL free agency. Jeff, the Stamps fan, can you answer this? Why, after 100 years of them not playing at home during the Stampede, are they doing it now? That's the one thing you hear internally from the Stampeders, is that they've tried everything they could do to get people into that stadium, and it's just not working. Now they've got the concert with Brett Michaels, which I think is great. Now they got this game kicking off, Stampede. Why the hell not? I think it's a great idea. I'd love to be there. Oh, my gosh. Somebody wrote in here the other day, and who was our guest? It was Lapalese. I think somebody said, can you please ask him if the CFL will ever have a 10th team in Halifax? Stop it. Rich in Edmonton says, desperation for a better gate. Says the guy from Edmonton, and known Calgary hater. It's going to be a lot of fun tomorrow, everybody. Take care of yourselves. We'll see you at noon Eastern here on Game Plus.
Now I'm the whore and the pimp. That's where the money is.
How about that? Barnaby.